Ji-won sat in the back of the classroom, staring at the holographic display floating above the instructor's desk. Thousands of planets rotated slowly in the air, each one glowing with a different color. Blue meant safe. Green meant friendly. Yellow meant caution. Red meant danger. Most planets were blue or green. A few were yellow. Only one was flashing red with a black border around it. Earth. The instructor, a tall being with gray skin and 4 arms, waved one hand at the display. As you can see, the galaxy contains many worlds where you may travel freely. Your education requires you to visit at least 10 different planets before you reach adulthood. Ji-won raised one hand. What about the red one? The classroom fell silent. Every student turned to look at Ji-won. The instructor's face changed color slightly, turning a darker shade of gray. That planet is restricted, the instructor said. We do not discuss it in this class. But why? Ji-won asked. What makes it so dangerous? The instructor's 4 arms moved in a pattern that meant the conversation was over. It simply is. Now let us continue with the lesson. But Ji-won could not stop thinking about it. After class ended, Ji-won went straight to the public library and searched for information about Earth. The computer showed very little. Earth was home to a species called humans. They had joined the Galactic Council 300 years ago. They were classified as a Level 5 cultural quarantine zone. Level 5 was the highest restriction possible. Even planets with active wars were only Level 3. Even planets with diseases that could kill most species were only Level 4. What could possibly make Earth worse than a war zone or a plague world? Ji-won spent the next 3 weeks searching for answers. Every database had the same basic information and nothing more. Earth was restricted. Children and young adults could not visit. No exceptions. The more Ji-won searched, the more curious Ji-won became. This was not normal. The Galactic Council always explained its rules. They provided data, gave reasons, and showed evidence. But for Earth, there was only one rule: stay away. Ji-won decided to find out why. The cargo transport station was busy, as always. Ships came and went every few hours, carrying goods between worlds. Ji-won had stolen an adult identity card from an older cousin. It would only work for a few days before someone noticed, but that was enough time. The guard at the gate scanned the card and waved Ji-won through. Safe travels, the guard said. Ji-won walked onto the platform where a large cargo ship was being loaded. The destination sign read, Earth Orbital Station. Perfect. Sneaking onto the ship was easier than expected. The cargo area was huge, filled with containers stacked high. Ji-won found a space between 2 boxes and settled in for the long journey. The ship would take 2 days to reach Earth, 2 days to think about what might be waiting there. As the ship lifted off and jumped into faster-than-light travel, Ji-won wondered if this was a mistake. But the question burned too bright to ignore. Why was Earth forbidden? The journey passed slowly. Ji-won ate the food brought along and slept when possible. The cargo hold was cold and uncomfortable, but Ji-won had committed to this path. When the ship finally dropped out of faster-than-light travel, Ji-won felt the change in gravity. They had arrived. Ji-won moved to a small window and looked out. Earth hung in space like a blue and white jewel. It was beautiful. Oceans covered most of the surface, with brown and green land masses scattered between them. White clouds swirled in patterns. It looked peaceful. It looked safe. It did not look like the most dangerous planet in the galaxy. The ship docked at a massive station orbiting the planet. Ji-won waited until the cargo crew left, then carefully made their way out of the hold. The station was enormous, with wide corridors and high ceilings. Beings from dozens of species walked past, going about their business. Ji-won tried to look confident and adult. The stolen identity card had worked so far. It just needed to work a little longer. A sign on the wall pointed toward the Cultural Exchange Center. That seemed like a good place to start. Ji-won followed the arrows through the station until reaching a large room filled with displays and information screens. A human stood behind a desk near the entrance. He looked young with dark hair and a friendly smile. His name tag read, Minho, Cultural Liaison. Ji-won approached the desk carefully. Hello? I am here to research human culture. Minho looked at Ji-won for a long moment. His eyes were sharp, studying. I see. May I ask what institution you represent? Ji-won showed the stolen identity card. I am a graduate student. My research focuses on restricted cultural zones. Minho's smile did not change, but something in his eyes did. Restricted zones. Interesting topic. He took the card and scanned it. Everything seems to be in order, but I notice you arrived on a cargo ship rather than a passenger vessel. Is there a reason for that? Ji-won's hearts beat faster. Humans could lie, but they were also very good at detecting lies. Budget restrictions, Ji-won said. Student funding is limited. I understand completely, Minho said, handing back the card. Well, welcome to Earth's orbital station. The Cultural Exchange Center has extensive databases available. What specifically interests you about human culture? Ji-won decided to be partially honest. I want to know why Earth has a level 5 restriction. Why are young people forbidden from coming here? Minho's expression became more serious. That is a complicated question with a complicated answer. But I can provide you with access to our cultural databases. Perhaps you will find your answer there. He led Ji-won to a private study room with a large computer terminal. Take your time, Minho said. If you need anything, just call for me. After he left, Ji-won sat down and began searching. The human database was vast. There were millions of files about their history, their art, their science, and their society. Where should Ji-won even begin? Ji-won decided to start with human history. If Earth was dangerous, perhaps the danger was in their past. What Ji-won found was shocking. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. They had fought massive wars that killed millions. They had created weapons that could wipe out all life on their planet. They had polluted their world almost beyond repair. But they had also survived all of it. Every disaster, every war, every crisis. They survived and rebuilt and kept going. Ji-won read for hours, barely noticing the time passing. The more Ji-won learned, the more confused Ji-won became. Yes, humans had a violent history, but so did many species. Yes, they had created terrible weapons, but so had others. Why was Earth different? Why was it forbidden? The answer had to be here somewhere. Ji-won just needed to keep looking. Ji-won had been reading for 6 hours straight when someone knocked on the study room door. A young human opened it and peeked inside. He looked about the same age as Ji-won, though it was hard to tell with humans. Hey, sorry to bother you, the human said. I am Junho. I work here part-time. Minho asked me to check if you need anything. Food, water? Ji-won's stomach made a noise. In all the reading, Ji-won had forgotten to eat. Yes, please. Food would be good, Junho grinned. Great, what do you eat? I mean, what is safe for your species? Ji-won told him, and Junho nodded. No problem. We have the universal nutrient packs. But if you want, I can show you some human food too. Most species can eat some of our stuff, and it tastes way better than those boring packs. That would be acceptable, Ji-won said. Junho disappeared and came back 15 minutes later with a tray. On it were several containers with different foods. Okay, so these are nutrient packs for you. But these are some safe human snacks. This is called fruit. This is bread. And this is chocolate. Try them if you want. Ji-won tried the fruit first. It was sweet and juicy. Then the bread, which was soft and filling. Then the chocolate, which was unlike anything Ji-won had ever tasted. Good, right? Hunyo said, sitting down in the other chair. So what are you researching? Minho said you were interested in why Earth is restricted. Ji-won nodded while chewing. I have been reading your history. You had many wars. Oh yeah, Junho said casually. Humans are pretty good at fighting. We almost wiped ourselves out a few times. World War I, World War II, the nuclear crisis of 2087. Pretty crazy stuff. The way he said it so calmly shocked Ji-won. You say that like it is normal, Junho shrugged. I mean, it is our history. We learned from it. Well, mostly. We still argue a lot, but at least we stopped trying to kill each other with nuclear weapons. That is progress, right? Ji-won stared at him. Your species almost destroyed itself multiple times and you think that is progress. Sure, Junho said. We did not actually destroy ourselves. That is what matters. We came close, saw how stupid it was, and stopped. Each time we got better at not doing the stupid thing. This made no sense to Jiwan. In galactic education, species that nearly destroyed themselves were considered cautionary tales. They were examples of what not to do, but humans talked about it like it was just another step in their development. I do not understand, Jiwan admitted. Understand what? Junho asked. How you can be so calm about almost dying out as a species. Junho thought about this for a moment. I guess because we did not die out. We are still here. My grandmother used to say that humans are like those tough weeds that grow through concrete. You can try to kill us, we can try to kill ourselves, but somehow we keep growing. He pulled out his phone and showed Jiwan some pictures. Hey, want to see some cool human stuff? This is what we do for fun. The first picture showed a human jumping out of an aircraft with no visible safety equipment. What is this? Jiwan asked, alarmed. Skydiving, Junho said happily. You jump out of a plane really high up, fall for a while, then open a parachute to land safely. It is amazing. That is insane, Jiwan said. Why would anyone do that? Because it is fun, Junho said like this was obvious. He scrolled to more pictures. Humans diving deep underwater, humans climbing tall mountains, humans racing vehicles at dangerous speeds, humans doing flips and tricks on bicycles. Each picture made Jiwan more confused and frightened. These humans were risking death for entertainment. Do you not value your lives? Jiwan asked. Junho looked surprised. Of course we do. That is why these activities are so exciting. The risk makes it meaningful. We take precautions, we train, we use safety equipment. But yeah, there is always a chance something could go wrong. That is part of the point. I do not understand humans at all, Jiwan said quietly. Junho laughed. Hey, you are not the first alien to say that. Most species think we are crazy. Maybe we are a little bit, but it works for us. He showed Jiwan more images and videos. Humans doing incredible things. They built massive structures that reached toward the sky. They created art that moved and changed. They made music that somehow felt exciting and sad at the same time. This song is from a really dark time in our history, Junho explained as music played from his phone. The artist wrote it after losing everything in a war. But listen to the words. It is about hope, about rebuilding, about trying again even when everything seems lost. Jiwan listened. Even without understanding all the words, something in the music felt powerful. It made Jiwan's hearts beat faster. Humans are really into hope, Junho continued. Even when things are terrible, we believe they can get better. My history teacher says that is our greatest strength and our biggest flaw. We never give up, even when maybe we should. When should you give up? Jiwan asked. Junho thought about this. I guess when the math says something is impossible. When the odds are too low. When logic says to stop trying, he grinned. But humans are not great at listening to logic. He pulled up a video. Check this out. This is from the early space program. The first time humans tried to go to the moon. Jiwan watched as primitive rockets exploded on launch pads. Failed mission after failed mission. They kept trying even though they kept failing? Yes, Junho said. And eventually they made it. Humans walked on the moon. Then we went to Mars, then we left our solar system. Everyone said it was impossible, but we did it anyway. Something clicked in Jiwan's mind. This was it. This was what made humans different. They did not accept impossibility. They tried anyway. Is that why Earth is restricted? Jiwan asked. Because humans are reckless? Junho's smile faded a bit. I do not really know. They do not tell us much about the restriction. But I know that after humans joined the Galactic Council, something happened. Some young aliens visited Earth and went back home changed. After that, the Council made the rule. Changed how? No idea, Junho admitted. But it must have been pretty serious for them to ban all young aliens from coming here. Even now, only adults can visit and they have to sign a bunch of forms first. Jiwan felt a chill. What could change someone so much that an entire planet became forbidden? The study room door opened again and Minho entered. His expression was serious. Junho, I need to speak with our visitor privately. Junho gathered up the food tray. Sure thing. Nice meeting you, Jiwan. Hope you find what you are looking for. He left, closing the door behind him. Minho sat down where Junho had been sitting. I know you are not a graduate student, he said quietly. Your identity card is stolen. You are too young to be here legally. Jiwon's hearts raced. Minho held up a hand. I am not going to report you yet. But I need to know why you came here. The real reason. Jiwon decided to tell the truth. I want to know why Earth is forbidden. No one will explain it. They just say it is restricted and refuse to discuss it further. But how can I follow a rule when I do not understand the reason? Minho was quiet for a long moment. That is a very human way of thinking, he finally said. Most species are content to follow rules because authorities made them. Humans always want to know why. Is that wrong? Jiwon asked. No, Minho said. But it is dangerous. Asking why leads to more questions. More questions lead to doubt. Doubt leads to change. And change scares people in power. He stood up. You should go home before someone else discovers you are here illegally. But if you truly want to understand, keep reading. The answer is in our culture. Just be prepared. Once you understand, you cannot ununderstand. And that might change you forever. Jiwon did not leave. Instead, Jiwon spent 2 more days at the station, reading everything possible about human culture. Minho did not stop Jiwon, though he watched from a distance with worry in his eyes. On the 3rd day, Jiwon's sibling Hyejin arrived at the station. Jiwon was in the study room when Hyejin burst through the door looking angry and terrified at the same time. Are you out of your mind? Hyejin shouted. Do you know how worried everyone has been? Mother thought you were dead. I had to track your stolen identity card across 3 systems to find you here of all places. I am sorry, Jiwon said. But I needed to understand. Understand what? That humans are dangerous? Everyone knows that. It is why this place is restricted. Hyejin grabbed Jiwon's arm. We are leaving now before you get into more trouble. Minho appeared in the doorway. I am afraid that is not possible yet. Hyejin spun around. And who are you? Minho Cultural Liaison. I have reported this situation to my supervisor and the Galactic Council representative on station. They need to assess whether your sibling has been affected. Affected by what? Hyejin demanded. A new voice spoke from behind Minho. By us. An older human woman stepped into view. She had gray hair and kind eyes. My name is Sora. I am a psychologist specializing in interspecies relations. Please, both of you, come with me. We need to talk. They followed Sora to a larger conference room. Minho came too, along with his supervisor Daehyun, a human man with a serious face and tired eyes. Let me explain what is happening, Sora said once everyone was seated. 300 years ago, when humans first joined the Galactic Council, we were excited to share our culture with other species. We invited young aliens to visit Earth, to study in our schools, to experience our way of life. She pulled up a holographic display. Within 10 years, we noticed a pattern. Young aliens who visited Earth went home changed. They started questioning their societies. They pushed for reforms. They challenged traditions. Some started rebellions. Hyejin's eyes widened. Rebellions? Not violent ones, Sora clarified. Social movements. Demands for change. New ideas about how their world should work. The Galactic Council investigated and concluded that exposure to human culture was causing psychological changes in developing minds. What kind of changes? Jiwon asked. Daehyun answered this time. You have been reading about us for 3 days. Tell me, how do you feel now compared to when you arrived? Jiwon thought carefully. I feel confused and curious. And something else. Something I do not have a word for in my language. Try to describe it, Sora encouraged. When I read about humans almost destroying themselves and then surviving, I felt something strange. When I learned about humans trying impossible things until they succeeded, I felt it again. It is like believing something could happen even when it should not be possible. Hope, Sora said softly. That feeling is hope. And that is what the Galactic Council fears most about humanity. Hyejin looked confused. Hope? How can hope be dangerous? Sora stood and began pacing. Most species in the galaxy evolved to be cautious. They learned to respect limits. They developed societies based on stability and predictability. These are good traits. They prevent wars, reduce suffering, and create peaceful civilizations. She turned to face them. Humans are different. We evolved on a world that tried very hard to kill us. Ice ages, predators, diseases, natural disasters. We survived by refusing to accept our limits. We survived by trying impossible things. We survived by hoping that tomorrow could be better than today, even when today was terrible. Daehyun continued the explanation. This mindset is baked into our culture. Our stories are about overcoming impossible odds. Our heroes are people who refuse to give up. Our greatest achievements came from ignoring people who said something could not be done. I still do not see the danger, Hyejin said. Minho spoke up. The danger is that this way of thinking spreads. Young minds are flexible. When they see humans doing impossible things, they start to believe they can do impossible things too. When they hear our stories about never giving up, they stop accepting the status quo in their own societies. Sora nodded. The Galactic Council spent decades studying this effect. They called it cultural contamination syndrome. Young aliens exposed to human culture show increased risk-taking behavior, decreased respect for traditional authority, and a tendency to question established norms. She pulled up more data on the display. Look at these graphs. This shows social unrest on various worlds before and after their youth visited Earth. See the correlation? The graphs were clear. Every species that sent young people to Earth experienced significant social changes within a generation. So the Council banned us, Ji-won said quietly. Not to protect us from humans, but to protect their own societies from change. Exactly, Daehyun said. Earth is not dangerous because humans are violent or evil. Earth is dangerous because human ideas are contagious, and those ideas threaten the stable order the Council has maintained for thousands of years. Hyejin stood up angrily. This is insane. Ideas cannot be that powerful? Cannot be? Minho said with a slight smile. You just used a human phrase. Cannot be. Most species would say are not. The difference is subtle but important. Humans always frame impossibility as a challenge to overcome, not a fact to accept. Hyejin sat back down slowly, looking shaken. Sora turned to Ji-won. You asked why Earth is forbidden. Now you know. But knowing comes with consequences. You have been exposed to our culture. You have felt hope. You cannot unfeel it. The question is, what will you do with this new understanding? Ji-won thought about everything learned over the past 3 days. The wars humans survived, the disasters they overcame, the impossible things they achieved, the casual way they faced danger and kept going. I cannot go back to how I thought before, Ji-won admitted. I understand now why they do not teach us about Earth. If every young person in the galaxy learned what I learned, everything would change. Yes, Sora said. Everything would change. Is that good or bad? The Council thinks it is bad. They value stability. But humans ask a different question. We ask, is stability more important than growth? Is peace more important than progress? Is safety more important than possibility? Daehyun added, the Council has kept the galaxy peaceful for a long time. That is worth something, but they have also kept it stagnant. Nothing changes. Nothing improves. New ideas are discouraged. Risk is forbidden, and every species slowly becomes more rigid, more fixed in their ways. Except humans, Minho said. We keep changing. We keep trying new things. We keep pushing forward. And that makes us dangerous to a system built on never changing. Ji-won looked at Hyejin. Do you see it now? Why they hide this from us? Hyejin nodded slowly. I see it. And it terrifies me. If this spreads, if everyone starts thinking like humans, the galaxy will fall into chaos. Or it will finally grow, Ji-won said. We will never know unless we try. Hyejin stared. You sound like one of them now. Ji-won realized it was true. 3 days among humans, 3 days learning their culture, and Ji-won had changed. The cautious, obedient student who arrived at this station was gone. Something new had taken that place. Something that believed impossible things could become possible. Something that hoped. 2 days later, a Galactic Council investigator arrived at the station. His name was Taewoo, and he looked young for someone with such an important job. He arrived with official documents and a serious expression. I am here to take Ji-won into custody, Taewoo announced. Violation of Level 5 cultural quarantine restrictions is a serious offense. Minho met him at the docking bay. Ji-won is in the medical wing. The psychologist wants to complete her evaluation first. That is not necessary, Taewoo said coldly. I have authority to remove any unauthorized individuals from restricted zones immediately. With respect, Minho replied, you have authority over my station only if I grant it. And I want Dr. Sora to finish her work. It will take 1 more day. Taewoo glared at him. You are protecting a criminal. I am protecting a curious kid who wanted to understand a stupid rule, Minho said. There is a difference. While they argued, a human engineer named Yuna approached Taiwu. Excuse me, are you the council investigator? I need to ask you something. Taiwu turned to her, irritated. What? I am working on a new engine design that could cut travel time between systems by 30%. But the physics say it should not work. Should I keep trying or accept that it is impossible? Taiwu blinked, confused by the sudden change of topic. If the physics say it is impossible, then it is impossible. Why would you waste time trying? Yuna smiled. Because physics said we could not break the sound barrier. Physics said we could not travel faster than light. Physics said a lot of things that turned out to be wrong, or at least incomplete. So I keep trying. That is illogical, Taiwu said. Maybe, Yuna agreed. But it is how humans work. We do not accept impossible. We just see it as a challenge we have not solved yet. She walked away, leaving Taiwu standing there looking troubled. Minho watched this with satisfaction. Come on. I will take you to see Jiwan. Maybe you will understand what we are dealing with here. They found Jiwan in a meeting room with Hyejin, Sora, and Daehyun. Taiwu expected to find a traumatized young alien, maybe scared or confused. Instead, Jiwan looked calm and thoughtful. Hello, Jiwan said. You are here to take me home? Yes, Taiwu replied. You broke the law. There must be consequences. I understand, Jiwan said. But before we go, can I ask you something? Do you know why the law exists? Taiwu frowned. The law exists to protect young minds from dangerous cultural influences. But why is human culture dangerous? Jiwan pressed. Have you ever researched this yourself? I do not need to research it, Taiwu said firmly. The council made the determination 300 years ago. That is sufficient, Minho made a small noise. That is exactly the kind of thinking humans question. Someone in authority said so, therefore it must be true. We prefer to verify things ourselves. Taiwu turned on him. Your way of thinking is precisely the problem. You teach disrespect for authority. You encourage people to question decisions made by those wiser and more experienced. You create chaos. We create change, Daehyun corrected. Chaos and change are not the same thing. Before Taiwu could respond, alarms started blaring throughout the station. A mechanical voice announced, Hull breach in Sector 7. All personnel evacuate immediately. Repeat, hull breach in Sector 7. Everyone rushed out of the meeting room. Crew members ran past them toward the evacuation pods. Taiwu grabbed Jiwan's arm. We need to leave now. But Minho was running the other direction, toward the breach. Daehyun ran with him. So did Yuna and several other humans. What are they doing? Hyejin asked, horrified. The protocol is to evacuate. Sora was also moving toward the danger. Come on, she called back. We need to help. Help how? Taiwu shouted. The station's protocols are clear. When there is a hull breach, you evacuate. You cannot repair it in time. Watch us, Sora said, and kept running. Jiwan pulled free from Taiwu's grip and followed the humans. Hyejin and Taiwu had no choice but to follow as well. They reached Sector 7 and found the humans already working. The breach was small but growing, air hissing out into space. Emergency doors were closing, sealing off the section, but there were still people trapped on the other side. We have maybe 5 minutes before those doors close completely, Minho said, looking at a screen. We need to patch the breach and get those people out. The probability of success is less than 3%, the station's computer announced. Evacuation is the logical choice. Good thing we are not logical, Yuna said, pulling on a pressure suit. Other humans were doing the same. Taiwu watched in disbelief. This is insane. You cannot possibly succeed. Maybe not, Minho agreed, also suiting up. But we have to try. Jiwan stepped forward. How can I help? Minho looked surprised, then smiled. See that console? Monitor the breach size and tell us if it gets bigger. Hyejin, you monitor the door timer. Taiwu, get on comms and tell those people on the other side we are coming for them. For a moment, Taiwu just stood there. Then, almost against his will, he moved to the communications panel. What happened next would stay with Jiwan forever. The humans worked fast, coordinating perfectly without anyone giving orders. They patched the breach with materials that should not have worked but somehow did. They cut through a stuck door with tools meant for completely different purposes. They created a solution from impossible circumstances, and through it all they smiled. They joked. They encouraged each other. When something failed, they tried something else immediately. There was no panic, no despair, only determination. 30 seconds until door closure, Hyejin called out. Almost there, Yuna said, welding one last piece into place. Pressure stabilizing, Jiwon reported. The trapped people came running through just as the emergency doors began their final closure. Everyone made it through. The breach was sealed. The impossible had been done. In the aftermath, as everyone caught their breath, Taewoo stood very still. His hands were shaking. You should not have succeeded, he whispered. The math said you would fail. Minho took off his helmet, his hair messy and his face sweating. Math is not everything. Sometimes you just have to believe you can do it and work really hard and hope for the best. That is not how the galaxy works, Taewoo said, but his voice lacked conviction. That is how humans work, Daehyun said. And maybe, just maybe, that is how the galaxy should work. Taewoo looked at Jiwon and Hyejin. He saw the wonder in their eyes, the excitement, the new understanding. And he felt it himself. Something had changed inside him during those few minutes. He had helped humans do an impossible thing. He had been part of it. I need to make some calls, Taewoo said quietly. This situation is more complicated than I thought. Jiwon understood. Taewoo had been infected too. He had caught the human disease of hope, and there was no cure for it. Later that night, Jiwon stood at a viewing window looking down at Earth. Junho came and stood beside them. Pretty crazy day, huh? Junho said. Every day with humans is crazy, Jiwon replied. I am starting to understand why the Council is afraid. Because we are reckless and illogical? No, Jiwon said. Because you make the impossible seem possible. And once someone believes that, they can never go back to accepting limitations. Junho smiled. Is that such a bad thing? Jiwon thought about this. I do not know, but I think I am about to find out. 3 weeks after the hull breach incident, a formal tribunal was convened on the orbital station. The Galactic Council sent one of their elders, a being named Seojun who had served for over 2 centuries. He arrived with a full delegation and enough legal documents to fill a small library. The hearing room was large and formal. Seojun sat at the head of a long table. On one side sat Jiwon, Hyejin, and Taewoo. On the other side sat Minho, Daehyun, Sora, and several other station personnel. Guards stood at every door. This tribunal will determine the consequences for multiple violations of galactic law, Seojun announced. His voice was deep and carried the weight of authority. Jiwon, you illegally entered a restricted zone. Minho, you failed to report and remove an unauthorized visitor. Taewoo, you have filed a report questioning the validity of Earth's restriction level. All of these are serious matters, Jiwon stood up. Before you pass judgment, I request that we hear testimony from someone who was there when the restriction was first put in place. Seojun's eyes narrowed. That was 300 years ago. Why would historical testimony matter? Because I want to know the truth, Jiwon said simply. Not the official story. The real reason. Seojun was quiet for a long moment. Very well. We have brought such a witness. Let her speak. The doors opened, and an elderly human woman walked in slowly. She looked incredibly old, her hair pure white, her face lined with wrinkles, but her eyes were sharp and clear. This is Nari, Seojun said. She was part of the first human delegation to the Galactic Council. She was there when the restrictions were debated and implemented. Nari sat down carefully and looked around the room. When her eyes found Jiwon, she smiled slightly. You look like the young aliens who visited Earth all those years ago. Curious, eager to learn, ready to question everything. What happened to them? Jiwon asked. They went home changed, Nari said. And they changed their worlds. That is what happened, Seojun spoke up. Please provide context, Nari. The tribunal needs to understand the full situation. Nari nodded. When humans first joined the council, we were excited. We thought we would share our culture, learn from others, and everyone would benefit. We invited young aliens to study on Earth. Thousands came over those first 10 years. She paused, remembering. They lived with human families. They attended human schools. They watched human entertainment. They learned human history. And slowly they began to think like humans. Meaning what? Jiwon asked. Meaning they started asking why, Nari said. Why do we do things this way? Why is this rule in place? Why can we not try something different? These are very human questions. Most species do not ask them. They accept the way things are. She looked at Seojun. You remember the reports? Young Velkari returning home and demanding to know why their caste system could not be changed. Young Threxians questioning why their leaders served for life instead of being elected. Young Morphids wanting to know why females had fewer rights than males. Seojin's expression darkened. They were disrupting stable societies. They were demanding progress, Nari countered. Every species in this galaxy reached a point where they became comfortable. They found a system that worked well enough and stopping to improve it. Humans never reached that point. We keep trying to make things better even when they are already good. Daehyun spoke up. The Council saw this as a threat to galactic stability. They worried that if young aliens kept learning human ways, there would be revolutions across hundreds of worlds. There were already small uprisings, Seojin admitted, nothing violent but concerning nonetheless. Social movements, protests, demands for reform, all traced back to contact with human culture. Nari leaned forward. So the Council made a choice. They decided stability was more important than growth. They decided to protect the status quo rather than risk change. They banned young aliens from Earth and classified us as a level 5 threat. But we are not violent, Minho said. We do not force our beliefs on others. We just exist and share our culture with those who want to learn. That is exactly the problem, Seojin said. You do not need force. Your ideas spread naturally because they are appealing. Young minds especially are drawn to concepts like hope, progress, and the possibility of change. These ideas are infectious, no? Are you saying ideas can be too dangerous to share? Taewoo asked. He had been quiet until now. Seojin looked at him. You have been infected yourself, investigator. Your report questions policies that have kept for centuries. You argue that maybe humans are not the problem, but rather that we have become too rigid. These are not the thoughts of a loyal council investigator. Maybe I am not so loyal anymore, Taewoo said. After seeing what humans can do, after feeling what they make you feel, I cannot go back to blindly following orders. I need to understand why. That is what they taught me. You see? Seojin gestured at Taewoo. This is exactly what we feared. Exposure to human thinking changes people. It makes them question authority. It makes them dissatisfied with the way things are. It makes them want more, want different, want better. Is that truly so terrible? Jiwon asked quietly. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at Jiwon. I mean it, Jiwon continued. I came here angry I was not allowed to know something. I thought the council was hiding a danger, and you were, but not the danger I expected. You were hiding the idea that things do not have to stay the same forever, that we can choose to change. That impossible is just a word, not a fact. Jiwon stood up and faced Seojin directly. You ask what we should do about humans. But I think the real question is, what are we going to do about all the others like me? Because I am not the only young person who questions the restriction. I am just the only one who broke the rules to find out why. Hyejin stood up as well. I came here to bring Jiwon home. I was angry and scared. But after seeing humans work, after watching them turn a 3% chance into a 100% success, I cannot unsee it. I cannot unfeel the hope they gave me. Even if you punish and not erase what we have learned. Taewoo stood. I am supposed to enforce the council's rules. But I have to agree with Jiwon's original question. How can I enforce a rule I do not believe is just? The council restricted Earth to prevent change. But maybe change is exactly what we need. Seojin looked at them all, then at the human representatives. You do not fight us with weapons. You do not threaten us with force. You simply exist, and that is enough to undermine everything we have built. We do not want to undermine you, Sora said gently. We want to inspire you. There is a difference. Is there? Seojin asked. When inspiration leads to revolution? Yes, Nari said firmly. Revolution tears down the old without knowing what comes next. Inspiration builds something new while learning from the old. Humans have done both. Seojin sat back in his chair looking tired. I have a decision to make. I can enforce the law strictly. Punish Jiwon, remove Minho from his position, and censure Taewoo. This would send a message that the rules still matter. He paused. Or I can acknowledge that the situation has changed. That the infection, as we call it, has already spread further than we thought. That maybe after 300 years it is time to reconsider our approach. What will you choose? Jiwon asked. Seojin was quiet for a very long time. Finally he spoke. I will recommend that the restriction level remain in place officially. Earth will still be classified as level 5. But I will also recommend that certain exceptions be allowed. Controlled exposure, educational programs, carefully monitored exchanges. That is a compromise, Minho said. Yes, Seojin agreed. Humans are not the only ones who can learn new approaches. The council has been rigid for a long time. Perhaps a little flexibility is overdue. He looked at Jiwan. You will not be punished severely. Community service and mandatory counseling. But more importantly, you will be part of a new program. You and others like you will help us understand how to safely share human culture with young minds. If it must spread, let it spread in a controlled way. Jiwan nodded slowly. That seems fair. Fair, Seojin repeated. Another human concept. We usually say lawful or proper. Fair implies judgment based on circumstance rather than just rules. He smiled slightly. You really have been infected, the tribunal ended. Jiwan and Hyejin prepared to go home. But before they left, Jiwan spent one more day at the station, talking with Minho and Junho. Do you think anything will really change? Jiwan asked. Minho shrugged. Maybe, maybe not. But you planted a seed. That is how change happens with humans. Small seeds that grow slowly. One person questions something, then another, then 10, then 100. Before you know it, the whole galaxy is asking why things have to be the way they have always been. Junho grinned. Besides, you are going home, and you will tell your friends about us, and they will tell their friends. Ideas spread. That is what ideas do best, Jiwan smiled. The council is right to fear you, not because you are dangerous, but because you are contagious. We prefer to think of it as inspiring, Minho said. Months later, Jiwan was back home, attending regular school again. During a history lesson, the instructor brought up the display of planets. When Earth appeared with its red warning symbol, a young student raised their hand. Why is that planet restricted? The student asked. The instructor hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. That is not something we discuss in this class. B.